I'm Georges Saint-Pierre. Welcome to Rush Fit. Are you ready to train with me? Hi everyone, I'm Georges Saint-Pierre. Welcome to my Rush Fit warm-up. This program has been designed by Eric Owens.
The Rush Fit warm-up is a multifaceted warm-up that uses only body weight motions and allows you to work every muscle of your body in a functional manner to get you ready for the work to come and the rounds. So let's not waste too much time, guys. Let's go and get started here with a shoulder width stance, and we're just going to do some torso twist. So as you notice, I want to get my elbows up about shoulder height. They can dip down a little bit, that's okay. And I pick a good pivot point on the ground. I want to rotate back and forth. Imagine that my elbows, if there's a line, just about going about 180 degrees. If there's a sphere here, right? I don't want to go too far. I don't want to go all the way around here. I don't want to injure myself. Because remember, we're just warming up. We're trying to get the body loose, core temperature up, so we don't injure ourselves, and we're ready for the work to come.
The body is like an elastic. If you try to stretch an elastic when it's cold, it's gonna snap. If you try to stretch it when it's warm, now you're gonna be able to play with it.
Now we're doing each exercise for 60 seconds. So right now we have about 10 seconds left, and then we're going to switch and go into our next exercise, which is a side bend. Let's keep going though, guys. We have about 5 seconds. All right, good job. So now here in our stance, we're just going to lean to one side, kicking our hip out, reaching over, then going to the other side. This is a side bend, and what we don't want to do is we don't want to bend forward and then over. We want to keep our body stacked, meaning knee, hip, shoulder, everything in alignment. We let the hip kick out to the side and we reach. This is going to be stretching the muscles of the hips and of the lats. And this is a very important movement pattern. In most functional fitness and in fighting, you have to be able to move side to side as well as forward and backwards.
Like every other exercise, you start slowly and you try to pick it up as time goes on.
Now we have about 20 seconds left in this. And also work at your own rate. If you find you're starting to fatigue, the form's starting to go away, step back, maybe take a few deep breaths, then get back at it. 10 more seconds, guys.
Warm-up is very important. It prevents injuries and it allowed us to have our full range of motion.
Okay, great job. Now let's turn and face this direction, and we're gonna come down onto our fingers, walking out into the plank position, and we're gonna walk our feet up to our hands. You just turn, switch directions, and go back in the other direction. This is a great way to stretch all the muscles on the back side of the body. We're also activating the core. We're starting to get things a little bit, the difficulty is increasing here now. So you might find that your body temperature is increasing. That's good. You should be starting to sweat probably around this point, maybe within a couple more exercises. The difficulty, the complexity is going to increase. And one of the things you might notice, so Victoria, if you can, let's do a modification. Let's do a bent knee modification. So Victoria happens to have great flexibility, but if her flexibility wasn't so good, she's going to come up like this. She's going to kind of tuck under, and she's going to lower down with a bent knee position. That's going to allow her to get down there on the ground, walk herself out, and as she walks her feet up, she'll also do it in a bent knee position. All right, great job, Victoria. Okay, about 5 more seconds, guys. Let's try to get one more. Okay. Now up and standing, we're going to take a move from capoeira, okay? We're going to do the jingo. We're going to go side to side, so it's like a backward lunge. We bring one hand in front, so yeah, your defend hand up a little bit higher, George, come up in front of the face, and we go side to side. This is a great move about fluidity. Basically, it's a backward lunge. We go side to side, and capoeira has some very effective techniques, and this is when the base moves of capoeira. I'm sure none of us are very good at it, but still a fun exercise, and it's a great variation of a lunge.
Capoeira, it's a martial art from Brazil. It's also a style of dancing.
Yeah. And this is one of their base motions. It's a great way to warm up the body. Moving back and forth. We have the coordination here. We're lunging back with one leg, then back with the other. About 10 more seconds to go here, and then we're going to do our walkout push-up. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, now here, shoulder width stance. We're going to lower down, squatting. We're going to walk out into the full push-up position. Hands underneath the shoulders, lower down, then come back up. Try to stress getting a full range of motion here. So you squat all the way down, get your hands into the ground, you walk out, so you get your hands underneath your shoulders. You don't want them far back, you don't want them too far forward. A good alignment, lower down, chest to the deck, press all the way up, then back into standing. Okay, now we're about halfway into it, guys, so 30 more seconds. And you'll notice as when they come back up into the standing position, we want to make sure our heels get on the ground before we stand up. And let's check out Victoria's form here. So if you start to fatigue a little bit, it's okay to lower down your knees. It's also okay to restrict your range of motion if necessary. If you can't lower all the way down, what you don't want to have happen is lead with your head or collapse in the core. You want to keep the core activated at all times. Maintain good alignment, ear, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle. Okay, now back in the standing, guys. We're going to come here, feet together, and lateral lunges going side to side. Try to imagine your feet are running down parallel lines here. We don't want our toes pointing too far out or too far in. When we take our step out too, we want to sit back into our heel. Notice how the trail leg stays straight. The lead leg is a leg that bends. The hands raise up as a counterbalance, and that's also activating the muscles in the shoulders, giving us a full body warm up. Remember, functional training is about using all muscles of the body, not just one or two. Halfway there, guys. And if you notice, they're not working at a breakneck speed. The speed is enough to make sure that they're working, but yet this isn't really a workout yet. Remember, it's a warm-up. We're just getting the body warm and loose. If you're finding you're out of breath and you're about to pass out, you probably need to slow down a little bit and do a little bit less repetitions. Find your own speed and figure out what works for you.
It's important to make the blood circulate everywhere, in every muscle, in every joint of our body, to prevent injuries. You know, it's very important.
Okay, now here in our stance, let's lower it down. We're going to walk out, and we're going to do our push-up with a lateral hold here, okay? So we're going to come up, a lateral plank. We lower down to the push-up and back out. All right, guys, let's get on it. Walk out, and once you get out into that push-up position, you're going to maintain that push-up position. So they're all the way down, you open up, you rotate. So notice how they rotate on their feet completely. They rotate. Then after they hold a 5-second hold, they lower back down. Good. And if you find that a 5-second hold is not really challenging, try to hold it 10 seconds. Try to hold 20 seconds. Try to hold 30 seconds. Do the best you can. But 5 seconds usually does the trick. And the key is you don't want your core to sag. You want to keep your hips up in the air. That's going to activate your obliques. Now, Victoria, when you lower down, if you can't do a knee push-up, so lower back down, lower down to your knees. Then you're going to come up, and then raise off your knees. Yeah, so that's totally acceptable. You can lower down to your knees in order to do this. Okay, excellent. Now let's walk back up into the standing position. And that's going to set you guys up in the perfect position for your air squat, okay? So as you're here, you just want to lower down, thighs to parallel, hands up as a counterbalance, come back into standing, all the way up, all the way down.
Already start breaking a sweat now. That's a good thing.
Now if you notice, key things here, their knees aren't going too far forward. The knees initiate the motion, but then they start to sit back and down. They don't round here at the back and collapse to keep themselves upright. If you start to collapse, you probably need to shorten your distance, shorten the depth of your squat. You want to push down into your heels. You want to activate all the muscles in the posterior chain, your hamstrings, your glutes. Good core activation, proper alignment of the spine. And there again, you're not trying to do as many reps as possible. You're just trying to do good repetitions, full range of motion. About 15 more seconds.
Breathing is very important too. Inhale by the nose, exhale by the mouth.
Okay, excellent work. Now, let's walk out here, okay? And as we get down here, we're gonna get in the quadruped position, meaning I want my hands underneath my shoulders and I want my knees underneath my hips. A wide enough base so I have stability, but not too wide. Then I'm gonna go opposite knee to elbow, extend, hold 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then back in. We're going to stay on the same side. Now stay on the same side, everybody. So you're just going to switch opposite knee to opposite elbow. 3, 2, 1. Keep going, in and out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2 more times. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now let's switch sides. So get your stance in place, proper base, and go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 3 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent work. Now let's come around to a lying position, lying face up, okay? And now we're gonna do our straight up, okay? So we're pulling our toes back towards us, hands are overhead. We're gonna try to sit straight up and touch the ceiling here, okay? And then we're gonna lower right back down, right when the hands touch, right back up. We're gonna finish off with 1 minute of this, and that will complete our warm-up.
This is not a race, this is just a warm-up. The importance of this is the form. And it's not the repetition, it's not the number of repetition. It's to be able to break a little bit of sweat and ready to go for, after, be ready for a hard workout.
That's a very good point, George. And if you notice, George is sweating. Everybody here is sweating. It's a difficult warm-up, but yet everybody's able to talk. Everyone's able to still interact. They're not at that point where they're filled with lactic acid. We're not working out yet. Just getting everything loose and ready. About 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great job, everybody.
That completes our warm-up, and now we're ready to attack the real workout. Congratulations, everyone. Hi everyone, I'm Georges Saint-Pierre. Welcome to my strength and endurance workout. This has been designed by my trainer, Eric Owing.
Hi everybody. What we've done here is we've designed a workout that basically goes through all of the movements that you're going to see in a fight, or majority of them, not doing the actual techniques, but the movement patterns. So we're going to have squatting, lunging, pressing, pulling, twisting, turning, all kinds of stuff using our body weight and dumbbells. Our first 2 rounds are just body weight. So without any more talking, let's just go and get going with the exercises, right? First exercise is a basic air squat. So let's go ahead and start and squat down and up. So each exercise is roughly 60 seconds. There's going to be a transfer time of maybe 5 seconds. So you might be looking at 55 seconds, maybe 50, depending upon how long it takes you to transfer. What we're looking to do here with the squat is get a full range of motion. We want to go all the way up, all the way down. And as you start to know the motion, try to pick up the pace, try to put some intensity into it.
Remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish in a round. So it's important that you do the movement right. But as the time goes on, you pick up the intensity of it.
Everybody's looking great. Now, we have about 20 seconds left, so let's go and pick up the pace now. You guys have the squat down correctly. At home, if you're having trouble getting down the thighs to parallel, if you have to go a little bit shorter, that's okay. But try to go as quick as you can, all the way up, all the way down. We have about 5 seconds now, okay? Let's get ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Into the standing position, and now let's drop down into that chair iso squat, okay? We want to try to get those thighs to parallel. So George, just lower down a little bit deeper there, buddy. And you want to push into the heels. This one really burns.
Yeah, it's really burned. Don't be, if it's too much, don't collapse down. Just lift up a little bit to take away some pressure.
And it's okay to make modifications if necessary. One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to round over as doing this. You want to try to keep your body upright. So if you have to raise up out the squat, that's totally acceptable. You'll find that the isometrics, when you do this in any type of activity, especially fighting in life, it's very difficult because you have the muscles contracting and you're not really moving. So you feel like you're doing nothing, but you just feel your muscles burning, they're on fire.
There is one thing I need to work on. This is my endurance, guys. I'm more a fast twitch muscle oriented guy, so I'm very good with explosiveness, exercise, but this is my weakness.
Okay, George, interrupting, come out right here into the push-up position. Now we're gonna lower down, push up, hands off, and push up. Then right back down, hands off, push up. Here again, we'll run a full range of motion, okay? Pushing all the way up, lowering all the way down. You can't take your hands off the ground if you're not lowering your chest all the way to the ground. So be sure you're doing that at home. Now, if you have to, on occasion, you might get a little bit fatigued or might not be able to do it in the beginning. So, Lisa, let's go and show the variation off the knees. Now, if necessary, you can lower down here to your knees and still do the same exact movement. It's just slightly modified. The resistance is less because you're on the knees, and that's totally acceptable. This is another thing that's very important to stress, is that the back, when we pull the hands off the ground, we're working the retractors, okay? We're working the muscles that help our posture, our rhomboids, our trapezius muscle, our rear deltoids. We're working a lot of muscles that you normally don't hit in a standard push-up. Okay, guys, great work. Now, let's continue working those extensors of the spine, palms up to the air, trying to touch the palms of the ceiling with straight arms, looking straight down at the ground, trying to put the feet straight up in the air as well. So pretty much you want to try to hollow out your body, where the only thing that's on the ground is a little bit of your stomach and about mid-thigh. You want to try to peel everything off the ground.
Oh yeah, that is burning.
Woo! Good job, everybody. If you find throughout the motion you start to really fatigue and you can't stay up, it's totally acceptable just to put a little pillow for your head and just lie down, then come right back up. But try to push through it. You don't want to give up. It's only 5 minutes, so really give it your all. You have about 15 seconds. You guys are doing great.
Let's go, let's get through it.
And we're gonna hit our pop-up here next. So we have about 8 seconds now, okay guys? Stick it out now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the pop-up. So you can do it from the prone position or off the knees. So off the knees, popping up and standing, right back down. Prone position, still in a square position. And if that's too difficult, there's nothing wrong with stepping down, then try to step up and stand. It's totally acceptable to do this if necessary. But try to do it like George. If not, try to mimic what Lisa's doing. 30 seconds, guys. Let's get after it, okay? Come on, George. How many can you do now, buddy? Yeah. Good, Patrick. 20 seconds. All right, let's go. Rep it out now. That's it. Good. Come on, pick up the pace. 15 seconds.
Let's go.
Good. Get after it. Okay, guys. That's it. 10 more seconds. Let's get after it now, okay? Let's go. That's it, George. Good. 3, 2, 1, and time. Yeah. All right, nice, George. Okay, so that concludes our first round. Now, if you need, get a drink, do whatever you want. Towel yourself down, but try to stay loose throughout, okay? If you find you have some tight muscles, try to stretch them out and try to just keep the body loose. Get ready for round 2. We're coming back in about, 45 seconds now.
This is like a fight. It's important, everyone, that you need to pace yourself. You know, if you start like a lion, you'll finish like very slow. So it's important, as you start to do the exercise, you pace yourself. You make sure you're doing the right form, and then as time goes on, you pick up the pace.
And George, I noticed that you're having a little bit of a difficulty there with that iso squat. That's a tough exercise for you, huh?
It's true, because I'm more an explosive athlete. I'm more a fast twitch muscle type of athlete. So all this isometric strength is very hard for me. I can't hide it. It's one of the worst one.
That's okay.
Probably the worst one.
And that's the cool thing about functional training, is it always exposes the weak link in the person, okay? Now let's get ready, guys. We have about 3 seconds, and we're gonna start round 2 off with an air squat, okay? Get ready. 3, 2, 1, go. Remember, you wanna squat down, trying to get your thighs to parallel, bringing your arms up as a counterbalance, pushing down into your heel, and try to set a rhythm in the beginning that's, not too difficult, but yet you're working. Because remember, our first round, we got the heart rate up, and now we're just trying to carry that over, trying to keep our heart rate nice and high. There you go, George, a little bit deeper, buddy.
Yes, sir.
That's it. You'll find your thighs are probably burning right now, but that's okay. Now you're halfway into it, so go and start picking up the pace now, guys.
That's where it starts burning now. Keep going. Let's go, everyone.
And for you guys at home who's experiencing that burning in your thighs right now, that's the lactic acid building up in your thighs. That's good though, that's gonna burn the fat.
That is an horrible feeling, I can tell you.
Okay guys, 10 seconds, you're doing great. Let's push it out now, come on, get after it. 5 seconds. On my cue, we're gonna go into the squat thrust, okay? And go, hands down, pop up, stand up, back down, back and out. Try to be quick when you guys go out, okay? Touch your feet and hop right back up. Fully standing. That's it. You know, this is similar to when George is fighting and someone shoots him for a takedown, you'll see him sprawl. It's working a lot of the same muscles.
Exactly. Sprawl to avoid to be taken down.
Okay, guys, you're doing great. Good. Patrick, try to keep that head up. Try to look right down at the mat. Good. Remember, guys, there's a lot of stability here in the core, too. You don't want to let your hips sag. You don't want to hit the mat. If you're having a tough time doing this at home, what you want to try to think about doing is just stepping back, then stepping up and standing, okay? So step back, step up, and stand. That works just fine. Okay, guys, we're almost there. 10 more seconds. Let's try to get a few more reps in now, okay? Pick up the pace a little bit.
Let's go.
5 more seconds. Let's go. That's it, George. Okay, now hold in the push-up position, okay? Now we're down here. We're going to just go right into our push-up. So lower down and push up. Pause, down, up, down, up. Try to get a good rhythm going here. All the way down, all the way up. Patrick, pull that head back just a tad, okay? Good. That's it. Body straight. Try to think of a line, guys, going ear, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle. Okay, guys, let's go all the way up, all the way down. Patrick, try to get the chest to the deck. Okay, if necessary, lower down to your knees. And guys, if fatigue sets in, there's nothing wrong with lowering down to your knees for a bit, coming back, get right back into position, lower down, push all the way up and back. Fatigue's part of it, guys. Okay, now 15 seconds, all right? Let's get ready. Try to rep it out now, okay? George, let's get at least 10 more reps. 10, 9, 8, 10 seconds. Good. Come on, 5 more, let's go. That's it. Good job. All right, guys. So we're there. Now we're down here. We're going to pop up into the burpee, okay? Putting all the movements together. Not jumping too high on this one, just hopping off the ground. So we do a squat thrust, a push-up, and we jump up, land, and right back into it. That's it. Now, George's probably going to have a hard time talking this one because right now his body's pretty much overwhelmed with lactic acid.
Yeah, I feel like my body will collapse.
That's at least a good.
Not a good feeling to have.
Okay, you guys have about 25 seconds and you start picking up the pace, just like all the other exercises. Try to get after it now. Let's go. That's it, George. 15 seconds. Good. All right, guys, 10 seconds. One more. And we're going to hold down here in the push-up position and a lateral plank, okay? We're just going to switch over to the side. Hold there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch sides. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And switch. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep going, guys. Try to work on that rhythm, okay? Try to do a 5 count in your head. And what you want to focus on here is go and rotate down and around, is not allowing your hips to drop. So you're trying to lift that hip up, activating the obliques. Guys, we're almost there, about 25 seconds. And if you notice that you just can't do this, there's nothing wrong with coming at a 90-degree angle here with your legs and just raising up here. You just want to make sure you switch each side. 15 seconds, guys.
Let's go, guys. Let's go, everyone. Let's push. Push, push, push.
Okay, almost there. Last one, let's hold 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent, that's time. How'd that feel, George?
Feels horrible.
Well, it's kind of what's going on inside your body is you have a variety of things, right? You're working an explosive component with the burpee. You're working your push-up, you're squatting, you're working your legs, upper body, lower body, pretty much everything throughout.
Absolutely. Strength and endurance is really my weakness. I'm a very explosive guy. So strength and endurance is mostly isometric tension. This is something I have a really hard time dealing with.
Now, would you say that that's something similar to what you feel in a fight, the type of fatigue that you're feeling right now?
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's
really like my whole body is working out. I put myself in a lot of isometric tension. It's horrible. But there is no magic pill to it. You wanna look good and everything, wanna lose weight or be more performant, there is no magic pill. You need to work.
All right, George, now let's grab our dumbbells here, okay? So 15-pound dumbbells for George should be good. For me, I'm gonna grab my 15s. Okay, guys, and we're gonna start off round 3. Let's get ready now. Lateral lunges, starting to the right. Then pull the dumbbells up and out to the left. So pull them up, to the right, up, to the left. Remember, parallel lines with those legs, okay? We want our feet running down the same line. We don't want this, right? Okay, excellent. Halfway there. And this becomes quite difficult because of the previous 2 rounds. The body's already starting to fatigue, and now we're introducing new movement patterns, stuff the body hasn't done yet.
Oh yeah, I discovered some muscle in my body that I didn't know they were existing.
This has that ability. It's like I said, functional training exposes the weak links in the body.
Whew.
Okay, now we're gonna come up top here, okay? Feet shoulder width apart, we're gonna do a rotating overhead press. Switching side to side. That's it, George. Remember, full extension on the arms. That's it, good. Excellent, Lisa. How's that feel, George?
Feels terrible, but this is what I need to perform as much as I can.
All right, good attitude. All righty, guys, you're doing great. Now we're gonna come right here into our bent over row, okay? So chest over top of the knees slightly bent, and we're gonna pull around, going side to side, okay? Remember, it's the shoulders moving around the spine. You're just looking straight down. This is a very functional way to do your rows. We're not in a static position like this. We're actually doing natural body movements. It's very important. Hips back a little bit more, George. Yep, good. Okay, excellent, guys. Now let's come up into the standing position, our alternate upright row, okay? So we're alternating arms, pulling up and down. Yep, that's it. If you need to use a little leg boost, that's fine. Try to keep adjusting the muscles, your trapezius muscles, your deltoids. You're working your biceps. All of the muscles that you use to pull with. Excellent.
Let's go, everyone. About halfway.
Yep, you're almost there. Okay, and let's bring it around now to our rotating curl. So notice we switch directions at the top, and we maintain that position until we come back up. Good. Now you're going to come back up in the reverse curl. There you go. And lower down. Good. Nice, Patrick. And rotate up, rotate down. Okay, guys, almost there. 10 more seconds. I know this is tough.
The worst 10 seconds of my life.
Now 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Feet together, starting to the right. Lateral lunges again, okay? We're going through this whole routine again. And now you know the movement. So now you want to try to get after it a little bit more. Try to get more repetitions per 30 seconds. We're doing each one for 30 seconds, so we really want to get after it. Patrick, try to keep that back foot on the ground, trying to let it lift off. Good. Almost there, guys. 5 more seconds. Then we're going to go into our rotating press, okay? Overhead press, get ready, and go. Rotating presses. Try to get full extension on those arms. All the way up, all the way down, rotating. You can use your legs for a little boost if you want to, as you're pressing up. Excellent.
This is hard.
Yeah.
Keeps me having my hands up when I fight.
Alrighty, guys. Let's get after it now. We have 5 more seconds. Good, George. Okay, now dumbbells to the front. We're gonna sit back. Now we have our bent over rows, okay? Think about pulling that elbow around the spine, rotating the shoulders around the spine, but you're gonna stay looking down and your back is in a nice neutral position, okay? We don't want this, guys. We don't want a round back. We want the back nice and strong. That's it, keep going.
Let's go, guys, let's go, almost done.
Okay, almost there. 3, 2, 1, and upright rows now, okay? So alternating, try to keep the elbow above the wrist. If you need to, you can do a little bump with the legs, but I'd rather see you guys not do that. I'd rather see you just use just the muscles that are pulling. Trapezius muscles, your deltoids, your biceps, your grips being worked here.
One more exercise after this.
Almost there.
Ah!
That's it.
You can feel also it's your forearm that is burning, which is working on your grip as well.
And switch, rotating curls, up and down, okay? We only rotate at the top each time. Good. Now guys, we're almost there, okay? We have about 15 seconds, so let's really push it now.
Ah! Let's go everyone. Finish
Maintain
strong.
that chin neutral, George, that's it. Good.
Ah!
5 seconds, let's go, push it now. 3, 2, 1, and time. Okay, set your dumbbells down. When you set them down, try to squat them down, okay? Don't bend over, don't hurt yourself. Just did a good set. Now just try to relax. How's that feel, George?
Feels terrible, but you know what? There is no magic pill, like I said. There's only a way to improve, get better, and it's through hard work.
You'll find that whole thing is basically what we're doing. There's a dumbbell complex. So what we're trying to do is work the body in a variety of ways. We haven't worked with our body weight, and you'll see that's why we do a lot of rotation work, okay? That's a lot of stuff that, like I said, we're not set in with a big heavy weight trying to go like this. We're actually keeping it fluid, the same way in a fight, you know?
Absolutely.
Very similar.
That will help you to take away the lactic acid buildup in your shoulder. When I fight, I have to keep my hands up all the time, or for the most part of it. So it helps to be able to reject the lactic acid that is built up during that time.
Okay, George, let's grab a dumbbell now, okay? Just one to start off. Okay, guys, now starting round 4, we have our dumbbell around the world, okay? So if I'm starting with my right hand, I'm gonna initiate by going to my left, coming around, twisting directions. So now notice how our heels leave the ground here, okay? It's very important to get a full range of motion, but also be safe with your spine here.
Mobility and flexibility.
Okay. Almost there now, guys. Now after this, we're gonna go right into a one-arm swing. Okay, now let's come here to this position. Dumbbell to the front, hand out to the side, and using the legs to swing it overhead. Keep it in a neutral spine position. Trying to swing the weight up using the legs. You can pause for a beat up top. And going up and down.
This is a similar exercise that we practice in Olympic lifting.
Yes, it's sort of the same idea. Popping the hip forward. Okay, guys, now here we're going to come right here with a dumbbell, right? Now we're going to do a high pull. This is very similar to Olympic lifting. This is actually part of an Olympic lift. We're going to lower down, then pull up, okay? Try to keep the body aligned throughout. Don't allow yourself to sway as you're pulling. Try to stay straight up and straight down. Remember, try not to round the back. We don't want this. We want to keep the back nice and stable. If you have to change your depth on your squat, that's okay. Alrighty, and now we're going to come right here, put our dumbbell in front of our thigh. We're going to come up on one leg, and we're going to do a bent over row on one leg with one arm. And notice how my shoulders are moving around the spine here, okay? If necessary, we can lower down to one leg, stabilizing here. You notice how Lisa's doing it, and that's if you're having a problem with balance. That's totally okay. You can even brace your arm there if you want. Foot down, George, and we're going to do our diagonal press, okay? It's like this. If you want, you can keep your left hand up by your face, just like you're protecting yourself from a punch. If you start to fatigue, that's okay. Rest here and continue on. You can kind of pop the hip a little bit. All right, guys, we're going to push on here about 10 more seconds, and then we're going to switch sides. That's it, George. Try to get after it.
Let's go, guys. Let's go.
3,
So we go on the left side.
2, 1. Grab with your left hand, come over with your right, and around the world in the opposite direction.
It's important. We're going to work both sides equally.
Yeah, you have to bring balance to the body. So while we do on one side, we want to try to do the other. If you're 1 repetition off or 2 repetitions off, it's not that big of a deal. But you want to try to bring some balance into it. You don't want to do 20 on one side and then just 2 or 3 on the other.
There's always one side that you're better than the other. That is normal. Everyone is the
Okay,
same.
guys, now our swings. straight up and down. Use those legs, okay? Push your heels into the ground. Neutral spine position. This is working everything. This is working your legs. This is working your core. Your arms have to work a bit in order to hang on to the weight because it's pulling away from your hand. If you let go, if you have a weak grip, it's going to go flying out of your hand. Almost there now. 5 more seconds.
Keep it there, guys. Keep it there.
All right, and our high pull. So remember, elbow above the wrist. Try to keep the spine in alignment. Don't fall to the side. Don't sway. If you need the rest, you rest here, okay? Then continue on. That's it, George. Let's try to pick it up a little bit now. We're almost there, guys. Almost done.
Yes, sir. Pick it up, everyone.
5 seconds. Okay, now let's come here. We're going to bring up our left leg. We're going to bend over a little bit. Remember, we bend by pushing the body right over, okay? We don't want to bend over like this in a rounded back position. We want to keep the back strong. Let the shoulders move around the spine. And if necessary, you can put your foot down for stability. You can embrace your arm here if you need.
This is really good for your stabilization. Let's say someone get me in a single leg position. It's very good for a stabilizer, not only for your leg, for your ankle, everything, your foot.
Okay, George, now your leg down, and we have our diagonal press. So let's bring the right hand up by the face, and we're pushing out. That's it.
Last sprint, guys. Let's
Full
go.
extension. Patrick, try to get a little bit more of an angle out there. A little bit more. Yeah, there you go. Good. Nice, Lisa. Almost there, guys. 5 more seconds. Let's push now. Last 5, 3, 2, 1, and time. Okay, guys. That's round 4. Now try to take a little bit of a break, get some water, do what you have to do, and we're going to be back for round 5. How you feel, George?
Feels good. Now round 5. Now, starting from round 4, we get into the what is called in mixed martial art the championship round. A regular fight is 3 rounds. Round 4 and round 5, that's championship round. That's when you separate the men from the boys, like we say in the business.
Or the women from the girls. Okay, guys. Now let's go and grab a heavier dumbbell here, okay? So whatever you're using, try to go a little bit heavier. If you don't have a heavier dumbbell, that's okay. But we're going to go ahead and lie down and get ready for the 5th round. The 5th round, we're going to be doing it here on the ground. And we're going to be functioning from what's known as the closed guard position, okay? So let's start with the left hand. We'll be over here. And what we're going to do here, guys, when we start this round is we're going to do a twisting press. So that means I'm going to drive up and down, bringing the elbow by the hip, and go. 1 minute here, so pace yourself accordingly. You let the head lower down as you come down, and then you press up, twisting. Sort of like a bench press, but a lot more functional.
Don't forget to breathe, very important. Breathing out. When you push, you breathe out. You breathe in by the nose when you go back down. Don't stop your breathing. That's what's gonna keep you. That's what's gonna allow you to keep going.
If you guys notice, this round's a little bit long. We're doing a minute on each side. But it's because of the complexity here with these movements. We want to try to just stay with one movement and try to get as many repetitions as we can. If you find you start to fatigue, you can lower down with your elbow by your side and just relax for a beat and then continue on, but try to get as many reps. And if you find the weight becomes kind of easy, just increase your weight the next time you do it. Almost there now, guys. About 3 more seconds. Okay, let's go ahead and switch hands. When you switch hands, you can take your time, get yourself in good position. Switch your feet too, so whichever foot was on top, you switch to the other foot's on top. And same thing, pressing up and twisting, lowering down. And try to allow your head to move in the same direction that your body's moving. Don't try to look here as your shoulder moves that way. Try to move everything together. One functional unit. That's the key to being good at fighting or being good at almost anything. You have to integrate your body. Good, George.
That is very hard because it's 1 minute. Now we've been doing 30 seconds. This round it's a 1 minute. That's make a big difference.
A little bit more, George. You have about 15 seconds. All right, guys, this is the last round, so you have to really push now, okay? I know it's difficult.
Let's finish strong. Let's go.
Okay, 5 more seconds. Okay, guys, now let's switch it back over to the left hand, okay? Now we're gonna extend our arm. Our arm stays extended the whole time here, okay? We're gonna transfer our weight to the right shoulder, elbow. We're gonna come up here to a half get up. Then we're gonna lower right back down. So we transfer our weight over, come up and down. This is one of the best core movements you can do. And it's very similar to a motion that you do in fighting called a hip heist.
Exactly, the hip heist, that's what allowed me to stand back up from an opponent when he put me down.
You want to stay looking at the weight throughout. You don't want to take your eyes off the weight. If you do, the weight could come down and hit you in the head. That's obviously not a good thing. Unless you want to be a punch-drunk person. Good.
Now it starts burning really bad, coach.
That's pretty normal. All the lactic acid is accumulating in the body. Have about 5 more seconds.
Dig in, everyone.
Okay, guys, now as you lower it down, you're going to switch hands, okay? We're going to go to the other side. Arm out to the side. Remember, you're going to transfer shoulder, elbow, hand, sit up, then lower down. That's it. And once you feel you have the motion, you can try to do a few more repetitions. Once you get up there, hold for a pause, then right back down.
Keep your eyes on the weight.
You'll find that this motion pretty much hits everything in the core. Shoulders, your arms, your abdominals, your obliques, all the muscles you want to work, all the muscles that give you that six-pack, that strong abdominal wall, this is working them all. Good. Just keep working now. Come on, Lisa. You got it. Okay, about 15 more seconds, and then we're going to get both of our dumbbells, and we're going to do our prone row. Almost there, guys. 10 more seconds.
To hit a wall, you're not alone, but get through it.
Okay, now everybody, let's come around. Let's grab both of our dumbbells, okay? Take some time to get into position if necessary. We're going to do a wide base here. We're just going to do an alternating dumbbell row, going side to side. All right, guys, let's get on it, okay? No more delay. Try to wrap that elbow around the body, but try not to turn the hips too much. Try to maintain your body parallel with the ground. That's going to force your core to work so much more. That's it, George. Good job. Now, if you find after a while that you can't take this, you're really starting to sag your hips, we don't want that. So if necessary, lower down to your knees and continue on. But try to stay up here the whole time, okay? If you want, hey, George, go ahead and add a push-up every time you do a pull, okay? No. Stay up in the normal stance. Now, you just add a push-up every time you do a row. Do a row and do a push-up. That's an advanced variation if you want. Okay, let's go, guys. About 8 more seconds. Let's try to rep it out now.
Push, push, push. Last round. Do it like your life depends.
3, 2, 1. All righty, guys. And that's time. Good job. All right, so there you have it. That's 5 rounds, and that's pretty much what you're going to see when you see a championship fight. It's pretty similar to what you feel, right, George?
Exactly. You get pushed through like a championship fight, exactly. And that's really hard. I know most of you are probably every one of you are in pain right now, but that's what you need. You're gonna lose weight. You're gonna be in shape. That's what you need to reach the next level. All right. To achieve what you want to achieve, if it's either lose weight, being in better shape, or you use that as a performance exercise for your sport, that's what you need to do.
Okay, and that's what these workouts are designed to do. We want to simulate the kind of energetics that you see in a fight. We want to basically have 5 minutes of constant motion. If you notice, we don't use heavy dumbbells. George is using the heaviest 20-pound weights, but it's not really how much weight you lift, it's how you lift it. It's the quality, not the quantity. Obviously, we want to put more quantity into each set. In the future, that shows our work capacity is increased. That's a sign that fitness is increased. But what we're doing is we're taking, like I said, the exact same formula or format that you're going to see in a fight, and we're giving it to you at home, so you can pretty much achieve the same level of fitness that George St. Pierre has achieved.
The key to going through all those rounds, I know sometimes it's really hard. You have the impression that you're about to collapse, all right? And I'm the same way. It's not because I'm world champion that my brain doesn't work like that. But you need to motivate yourself. You know, it's not during the workout that you will be happy. It will be after the workout. Now we just finished our workout. I don't know if you do, guys and ladies, I feel great. Every time when you feel like you're about to collapse, it's important that you keep the intensity. And even if you try to raise the intensity, you have to do this exercise like if your life would depend on it. And I guarantee you, if you do that every single time that you're working out, you're gonna get better every time. Great job, everyone. Nice workout. Let's get here. Nice. Be happy. Congratulate yourself. You went through something really difficult today, and tomorrow you'll be better. Super, everyone. Great job. Just finished our workout. Now it's time for the cool down.
The cool down, it's very important. We're not going to do a long cool down sequence, but the exercises, they're pretty much what they're doing is resetting your neuromuscular system so that you can go back into your daily life without having your muscles cramp and tighten up. We're really going to stress a lot of the muscles around our hips, okay? That's where we did a lot of work. Also our lats, our shoulders, our chest, pretty much the whole body, but we're going to do the most effective stretches that we can do in the shortest amount of time. This routine should take no more than 5 minutes, 5-6 minutes, okay? So let's go ahead and start down here on our left knee. Right knee up, okay? What we're gonna do is we're gonna stretch the hip flexor. So I'm gonna contract my abdominal muscles, trying to tuck my glutes right up here up underneath me, trying to tilt my pelvis under. Then I'm gonna reach my left arm straight up in the air, fingertips pointing out towards the left. And I should feel the stretch coming right in here. Now we just wanna lift our chin up while maintaining this contraction, all right? Looking straight ahead, contracting in the abdominals, glutes, stretches right up here in the front. If the arm goes forward, 'cause you have tight lats, try to force it up there in the air, okay? We have about 10 more seconds, so just hang in there. Good.
Really feel the flexor
The hip
stretching
flexor.
here.
Exactly. Okay, great. Now we're going to come up. We're going to turn, face the other way, lower down to the right knee. Take your time here now, okay? Let's go ahead and set everything in position. So we're going to contract the abdominals and the glutes and press straight up. And we're holding here for 30 seconds. Now 30 seconds is pretty much the minimum here. We just want to do at least 30 seconds to make sure we stretch out the body. But if you find you're enjoying this, don't be afraid to go back through this routine, do it 1 more time, 2 more times, as much as you want. These are great stretches. You really can't get enough of these.
There is a lot of benefit to gain from stretching.
Okay. Now let's come up here. Now, you can do a butterfly stretch, which Patrick is going to demonstrate, or you can just lower right down here into the side straddle. Everybody's flexibility is different, but if possible, we just want to try to split our legs out here, keep the posture upright, then we want to go forward. You see, the variation that Patrick's doing is working the same muscles. We're trying to stretch the adductor muscles right here in our inner thigh, okay? What I'm trying to do is I'm basically just pushing out, so is George, and we're trying to go forward if we can. We want to lie down flat here. Holding each stretch for 30 seconds.
I remember when I used to be a kid, I used to go all the way down. Now as I'm growing up, getting older, it's impossible to do the same thing because I didn't practice enough.
Okay, good. Now let's close up here. Legs straight ahead. Now what we want to do, remember, we just don't want to touch our toes. We want to pull our toes back towards us, contract our quadriceps, sit nice and upright, fingertips pointing down. We're pushing forward with the heel of our palm. If you find that to be too difficult by going forward like this and it's way too much, you can just do this. Just brace your hands right here by your hips, push up, try to keep your posture upright, still pulling your toes back, still contracting your quadriceps, and just trying to eventually lean forward. Once you can break 90 degrees going forward, you can probably take your hands off and push forward.
Really good for the posterior chain.
Exactly.
Hamstring, calf, lower back. This is what you need to do.
Okay, now let's turn to our right. I'm going to kick my left leg around here, bring my right leg in. Now if you notice, I stick my knee straight out from my hip and I form a 90-degree angle here, a 90-degree angle here. Now what I want to do is I want to try to go forward, putting my head all the way down to the ground. Everybody has a different flexibility level though, so the key thing is to try to lean towards your left on the stretch. If your left leg's back, lean towards your left, even if you have to stay upright. If you can lower down all the way, that's great. If you're right here, that's fine. This is for the extensors. This is for the muscles on the outside of the hip. A lot of jumping, kicking, all those motions, we've really worked those muscles. Pretty much anything functional, you're using the extensors and the flexors. And now let's rotate around. So this is kind of cool. We're gonna lean to our right and swing to our left, and we come right back this way. Take your time getting into position though. So again, you want your left knee in front of your left hip, You want to try to create a 90-degree angle here, a 90-degree angle here. And same thing, try to lie forward. And if you have to, you don't have to push forward. Remember, you don't want to feel any type of tearing or real strong pulling. Just a slight pull in the muscles. And the muscles that we're trying to feel are the muscles right outside here, okay? Some people might feel it a little bit up in the back. You shouldn't be feeling it all over. Some people might feel a little bit of hamstring. For the most part, you want to feel it on the outer part of your left hip here. Trying to lie down.
Always a side that you're more flexible than the other. That is completely normal.
Okay, now we're just gonna kick back and through underneath. So we're in the quadruped position. So if you notice, we start out here with our knees right underneath our hips, right? And what we're gonna do, and our hands underneath our shoulders, we're just in a strong foundation. We're gonna extend our right hand forward, then our left hand forward. Now what I want you to do is drop your butt back while keeping your fingertips out there. Trying to touch your butt to your heels and trying to get your armpits down to the ground. Once you do that, you're trying to inch your fingertips away as much as you can. And when we're doing this, we want to feel the stretch coming right down throughout the lats, okay? Some people find if they spread their knees out here, they also get a adductor stretch here as well. That's good. You just, get more flexibility in there. I happen to have loose adductors, so I don't feel anything in the adductors, but I have tight lats. So this really stretches my lats every time.
You're really lucky. Me, I'm tight pretty much everywhere.
Okay, guys, great. Now we're going to come up here into this kneeling position. And what we want to do is we want to put our knees together, our heels together. We want to sit back here under our butt. We're going to interlace our fingers behind our back here. The most important thing is that I start to straighten my arms. That's more important than how high they get. Is that first they get straight, then I retract my shoulder blades, meaning I try to pull my shoulder blades together. Once I do that, I raise up as high as I can, and I want to feel stretched throughout my biceps, my deltoids, my pectoral muscles, all of that. And there's almost an infinite amount of stretches, but we don't want to spend all day stretching. You guys just did a hard workout, so we just want to hit some of the ones that really get the body back to where it was before you did your workout. Good, Patrick. George is very tight here, so this is a great stretch for him.
Absolutely.
Everybody else has good flexibility.
I should do this stretch more often.
Yeah.
Don't be scared that if you do something that you're not good at, that's mean you need to work on it. Like you can see this stretch, I'm pretty bad at it. That is something that I should put more time into it.
Okay, buddy, that's time, and that concludes our cool down. So you have to remember that the cool down, although it seems like it's easy and it's almost like it's a part of the workout everybody wants to forget to do. We did all the hard stuff, we warm up because we want to get ready for the hard workout. Then we do the cool down, but sometimes we forget to do it. Remember, don't forget the cool down. It's going to allow you, it's going to help you to recover and to come back so you can be consistent and work out on a regular basis. It's very important that you do all parts of the workout and you try to be as consistent as possible because that's what leads to progress. If you just, come in on occasion and you do maybe a round or two and then, you skip a few days, you're not going to see the results that you're looking for. The results are going to come through consistency. That's the most important thing. And the consistency is given to you by allowing your body to recover properly, which is why we do the cool down.
And also the cool down is not only physical. For me, I use the cool down as a way to change my mind. I start from being the athlete, George St. Pierre, the fighter. When I work out, I'm the fighter. I'm a martial artist. But the cool down allowed me to make the transition by being the fighter to the everyday normal guy. So it's more than an actual workout. It's also the changing of your mind, putting your mind back into what it should be in everyday's life. Great job, everybody. Hi everyone, I'm Georges St. Pierre with Eric Owings, and we are here today to explain to you the RushFit foundation movements.
The foundation movements are, well, they're our foundation. So we don't want to just rush through this segment and think that these movements aren't necessary and you just hop into the workouts. It's actually very important that you spend time focusing on these basic foundation movements and then go into the workouts. If you've mastered the movements in this segment, you're going to find that you're going to be able to perform everything with ease. Well, not with ease, but with competency. And by doing that, you're going to be able to progress and, reach your fitness goals, whatever they may be. So it's very important you take time, you watch, you learn, and then you spend time mastering them. You don't need to use a lot of weight. Some of the movements are just body weight. Some require dumbbells. But it's going to be very important that you take your time and that you make sure that your body's in proper alignment. Pay attention throughout the concept of core activation, the concept of good posture, of doing everything with correct form, minimal amount of weight, and then add weight as you feel necessary. If you do these movements correctly, you're going to find understanding the future DVDs are going to be a piece of cake.
We all train for different purposes, but make sure we get those movements right.
Okay, everybody, let's talk a little bit about the squat. The squat's one of the most fundamental motions that you're ever going to do in exercise and fighting and anything. I think almost everything that you do almost always has a component of changing your level up and down. So whether the person says level change, whether they say shoot, sprawl, whatever it is you're doing, almost always there's a little bit of a bend here. So we want to develop this to the fullest capability. That's why we include squatting. You see a lot of squatting in this program. And in the beginning, you might notice that your range of motion is not so good, but eventually it will increase as long as you take your time and kind of work within your own limits. And eventually you want to get to what is considered full range of motion, which is a parallel thigh to the ground and an upright posture. So if you notice when George comes down, George, if you can, squat down and hold the squat here. If you notice, George is pretty much settling into his heels. His knees aren't far past his toes, and he's sitting back like he's sitting down into a chair. Then he comes back up in the standing. Yes, and go and do a few reps, George. Let everybody see you doing the reps. And hold again at the bottom, George, if you can. Come back down. Good, yeah, right there. And like I said, if you notice parallel thigh, and then he starts to come up. Now, if necessary, the modification, if you're having a tough time, or you can stop, George, is going to be just to go a little bit more shallow. But what we don't want to see is we don't want to see the knees buckling in. This is a definite no-no. We want the knees coming out, okay? If necessary, you can widen your stance a little bit. So you don't want a narrow stance. Remember, shoulder width, toes are slightly to the outside, just a little bit, okay? We're not going really wide, just a little bit to the outside. And what you want to do is your arms come up as you sit back. So you have to kind of sit back. Imagine you're sitting into a chair. And if you're having a tough time, you can always put a chair behind you. But if you find that even you lose control, like you get here and you almost fall over, you fall back, that's totally okay. What you want to do there is you want to go a little bit more shallow, then stand. And eventually work your depth down till you get the parallel. So go ahead and do a couple more, George. Let everybody see the full range of motion. Yep, then up, one more. And this is a motion that, okay, George, you can relax. For George, this is extremely important for any fighter, for any athlete, for anybody almost, is the ability to go up and down with control of the core, with complete stabilization here in the body, being able to maintain this here all the way down to there. This is an essential motion for life, no matter whether you're fighting or just going about your daily routine.
Absolutely. It's a movement pattern that happens every minute of every fight.
And that's the squat. The lunge is one of the most essential motions, probably next to the squat. It's a little bit more complex, so there's a few more things we have to pay attention to. The squat, for most people, is a basic movement, whereas lunging, we're actually going forward, to the side, backwards, or crossing behind. There's basically 4 ways that we're going to do this. So George, if you can go in all 4 directions, let's go 2 to the front, then 2 side to side.
The knee doesn't touch the ground when you go in the front.
And backwards.
You see, my knee doesn't touch the ground.
And the cross back variation, where we go side to side. So we try 4 different variations, even though George has a good range of motion here. He's doing everything the proper way. And George, if I can just have you stop for a second and go out there into the lunge and lower down. And you can lower down. George is going to let his knee touch here just to relax his leg muscles, but normally he's not going to let his leg touch. If anything, we're just going to kiss the ground. It's just going to touch and come back up. Now, if you notice here, George, although he comes out, he comes forward, he's not driving his knee forward. He actually steps, he takes a natural step forward, and then he just sinks his weight down into his heel. That's very important. What we don't want happening is this, and then I keep going forward, and I feel a stretch here, like this is like a tearing sensation. Also, this puts a lot of stress on the knee. So I want to keep my foot on the ground, and then as I take this natural step forward, I go here, then I just lower down, okay? We want to maintain good posture. Sometimes we include a touchdown. That's totally acceptable. And the same thing, now if we come up, George, if we go to the side, notice how the knee doesn't go forward, you actually sit back. You sit back under your heels, and the arms act as a counterbalance here. Or you can touch down. If we move backwards, that's good. And if we go backwards here, same thing. We go back, and then I sink down into the heel of the front leg. And if I go to the transverse of the cross back lunge, I come here. My front leg, I sink down into the heel and up. Now, each one of these lunges, we go in different directions because, well, our body can move in different directions. We don't develop strength in just one range of motion. We want a variety of movement patterns that give us more balance throughout our body. And would you say this is pretty similar to what you do when you take someone down, when you shoot him for a takedown?
Absolutely. Not only, I would say, the takedown, the changing level, the footwork, even the most basic stuff that we do in mixed martial art, we use lunges in a certain way.
And you'll find at home, say if you have a hard time going all the way out into this position, you feel that you lose your balance and you're having a tough time, the best thing to do here is go a little bit wider with your stance, take a natural step forward, and then you're just going to do what we call a split squat. So it's a variation. We're not lunging, we actually stay in stance. So you can stay in stance and just touch down, or just stay up here and you come up. And if you find you have to restrict your range of motion a bit, that's totally acceptable. But what you don't want to do is come out here where you feel like you're falling and your knees are shaking and you're losing balance. So same thing with a lateral lunge. If I had to just stay here, I can do a stationary movement and restrict the range of motion a bit. But you want to try to get to where you do the full range of motion and include the movement patterns. But if you have to, you can stay stationary, do say 5 reps, 10 reps, how many ever is necessary from a stationary position. Then you switch, come into a stationary position, and it'll look just like this. That's the modification if you're having a tough time, and that's the lunge. The push-up is one of the most basic upper body exercises we can do. It requires no equipment, and you can almost do it in any space. If you just have a tiny little space in your living room, your bedroom, wherever, you can always do some push-ups. Now, the key to a push-up is maintaining good alignment of the body. So I should almost be able to transfer the same exact stance that you see here standing right to the ground. We don't want to be caved in here but too high. We want to think about almost a line that forms if you do it straight through the body, your ear, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle, going straight through. Once the deviations start to occur, that shows that your core stability is now, it's malfunctioning, and you're going to have to make a modification. We'll show some modifications, but let's first take a look at how it's performed correctly. George, let's go ahead and do a couple push-ups here, okay? Just a normal standard push-up. Notice how George has a great alignment here with his body. It's straight through, and that's because George has a strong core. By having a strong core, he's able to maintain that position. Now, George can do a variety of push-ups here. Let's do some knuckle push-ups, George. So by changing his grip, he changes the angle, and the angle changes which muscles are working, and he can work different parts of his body just by changing the way that his hands are placed. He can go narrow or wide with his grips. He can go up on his knuckles. That requires more wrist stability. Push-ups have a lot of variations. They have a lot of stuff you can do. Let's show a plyo push-up here. Just show, this is an explosive push-up. So it's the same movement, but just performed differently. Okay, great. And go ahead and relax. So that's basically a perfect push-up. Now, if you're having a tough time and you find, like I said, is I come into this position and I get up here and I start doing this, or my head starts coming down, I start breaking my form. The best modification you can make when that starts happening, so maybe, let's say I start off strong. I do 5 push-ups, but then my range of motion starts to get shorter, my neck starts to lead down, my hips start to sag. I want to try to maintain this alignment, and then it's lower down to my knees. From here, I continue on how I was doing, just off my knees. That makes the resistance much less, and I'm able to do it. If I find that even this, I start to sag and I start to break down, then what I want to do is I just want to lower back, take a break, come back into alignment. So notice that means my shoulders are over my hands, my head's in place, and it's my arms that are bending. I'm stabilizing my body with my core.
Eric, is that fair to say that the push-up also, it works the core and all the body in the same time? It's not only the arm.
Yeah, well, you know, George, it's funny that you asked that, because the thing about the push-up is that it's predominantly a core exercise. And remember, guys, core is beyond just abdominals. It's pretty much everything that's stabilizing with the body. So just maintaining the push-up position is actually quite difficult. If someone just tries to maintain this in good alignment for 1 minute, they'll start to fatigue. And what we're doing is we're adding on the arm exercise to it. So just don't think of a push-up as only a pushing exercise. Think about it as a total body exercise. And that's kind of like the whole thing that we're getting at in functional training. Because for fighting, you have to be able to use your whole body at one time. And in life, pretty much, you have to. Yeah, that's a variation where George is a scapular retraction, and now he's working the backside of his body. All right, great job. And that's the push-up. The sit-up is a very basic motion that I think everybody's probably done once or twice in their life. Whether we even realize, sometimes we just sit up out of our bed. So spinal flexion is really what we can call this, okay? And what we're doing when we do a sit-up is we're trying to use the abdominals, actually use our neck flexors here too. So pretty much think of the spine as not just here in this little area, right? It's the whole entire spinal column. And it's the idea of bringing everything forward. So that idea of flexion is a very essential movement pattern. One of the easiest ways to train this is by doing a sit-up. And you'll see this in the warm-up. So George, let's go and come up, where George starts to raise up in the air. Good. Now, as you lie down, let's bend the knees and do a traditional sit-up. Now, where you take your elbows down towards your hips and you sit all the way up. Just widen your feet out a little bit if you can, George. Good. And these are all good variations. Now, you'll find, like, throughout a fight, you probably sit up quite a bit, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Like, where you have to get up off the ground if you get taken down? Absolutely.
On the ground, and also standing up, I think just a basic punch, sometimes you need to crunch down. And
yeah, kind of cover.
That's when the abdominal comes into play.
And remember, anything like this is spinal flexion, and this is going to require the abdominal muscles to contract. Now, we can overload this pattern by putting a weight in your hands. Just using your body weight sometimes is enough. So there's a lot of variety in how to do this. And you'll find that sometimes for some people a full sit-up can be sort of like jarring on the spine. Sometimes you have difficulty with that. If that happens to be the case, there's nothing wrong with just doing an abdominal crunch variation. The key thing is we don't want to yank the head forward. We just want to kind of put our fingers here, or we can even cross over here. And when we do this, we just bring the shoulder blades off the ground and lower it out. So this is a modification for people who might find the full sit-up to be difficult. You can always do a partial motion. Then eventually, as you get stronger, work yourself into a full range of motion. And that's the sit-up. Now we're going to talk about back extension. Back extension is something that it's very important, actually, in everything in life. All these exercises that we're doing are extremely important, but this is one of those things that if we don't have our extensor, basically the erector muscles of the spine, we're going to collapse. We're going to develop a posture like this. And posture like this is not really good for anything in life, but especially not for fighting, right? I mean, fighting is one of those things you have to have good posture.
Exactly. Plus, it's going to make you have injuries. You know, it's not going to keep your body healthy. It's very important to have a good posture, keep your body healthy, and stay injury-free.
Now, George is just going to show a variation of the back extension. And so you can lower down here, George. You can do the more difficult one, and that's this. That's the opposite. But you can also just do it off the knees, too. So if George goes down, if you notice when he gets up here, so yeah, he's got to activate all this. Now, this has a little bit more to do than just back extension. That has glute activation. Now, here, he's pretty much extending throughout the spine. He's working all these muscles. Now, the glutes work here, too. And this is one of the kneeling opposites, or just the prone position opposites, is an advanced form of back extension with also glute activation and various other things. Now, when he goes down, this is pretty much showing, I think, back extension in a more pure form, although we are also encompassing pretty much everything here on the posterior chain. And just, George, if you can tilt your chin in, what's happening is he's pretty much contracting from head to toe all the way down his spine, all the way throughout. And yeah, you can go ahead and relax down, George. So this is one of those movements that, although it appears simple, it's actually quite difficult. I mean, you'll find that like if you put this into the circuits and you're just doing this exercise on a daily basis, whenever you do that isometric contraction, what happens is you just, basically lactic acid starts building up throughout the body. But as you do it more and more, you start to develop a tolerance to it and you get stronger and you actually develop better posture where you can stay upright or perform a takedown more efficiently or a guard pass more efficiently. Now we're going to show a modification here. If you're having a tough time doing the full extension with all 4 limbs off the ground, what George is going to do is going to put his head down on the ground and he's going to go 1, then over to his other hand, 2, to his leg now, 3, and then to his other one, 4. You can try to hold each one for about 5 seconds, and eventually you can try to do the line opposites. So George, let's go opposite leg, opposite arm, and you can go side to side like that. Now if you've done the opposites and you've been able to complete, going side to side, now let's try doing everything together. You do all 4 limbs off the ground, so you raise up, George, try to raise the legs off, and what George is trying to do is get everything just pretty much keeping just his abdominals and his thighs on the ground and take everything else off the ground, which causes everything on his back to have to contract, and that's going to give him good back extension and good posture, and that's the back extension. Now let's talk about rotation. You'll find in this program there's a lot of movements that require us to rotate, moving our shoulders around our spine. This is a consistent theme you'll find pretty much throughout fighting too, right? I mean, to throw a punch, to throw a kick, to almost do any type of judo-style takedown, there's almost always a rotational component.
Absolutely, it's a natural movement pattern of the body. You can see this in every movement, every technique in mixed martial art.
And you'll find that as we're doing these rotation movements, sometimes we take a pose where we're just moving our shoulders around our spine, but our spine pretty much stays looking straight ahead. Sometimes we'll follow. So you notice if George is doing now, he's following. Now, George, let's shorten up your range of motion, but let's stay looking straight ahead with no movement from the head whatsoever, just your shoulders moving around. And these are both acceptable forms of rotation. Now, you also notice if George does what we call a prone rotation, okay, from down in the push-up position, just opening and closing. George, you don't have to even pause that long, just pause for about a second. So George is going to rotate. There again, he's rotating around and down, go to the other side, going side to side. And there's also another form of rotation here that you'll see. Actually, there's various forms. You'll notice it's a consistent theme, and you just want to be aware of this, not to overdo it. Don't try to over-rotate. Let your natural range of motion sort of dictate that. Always start with going with a restricted range of motion and gradually building up to where you feel like you're reaching those outer limits, then that's where you want to stop. You don't want to go too far. And George, let's just show the Kimura sit-up. This is another sit-up that you'll see throughout, and notice how he's rotating as he comes up. So here again, we're almost combining the movement patterns, spinal flexion with rotation, and that's one of the things you're going to notice throughout the program is that there's a lot of rotation going on. One of the key things, though, is to make sure that you have your core activated, meaning that your muscles just aren't loose and your spine's not really loose. You want to make sure everything's strong and stabilized. That way, as you're rotating, you're not going to hurt yourself. That's very important. That's also something we're going to talk about is the concept of core activation. But for right now, that covers rotation. Now let's talk a little bit about core activation. Core activation is one of those things that it's actually very complex if you want to talk about it, because you can we can get into debate on what part of the core are we talking about. We're talking about the core of the knee and the the intrinsic stabilizers inside the knee or whatever little joint. But a consistent thing we're talking about, basically the stabilization of our midsection of the spine. That's what you're going to hear. You're going to hear core activation throughout, and you're going to pretty much every exercise that we do, it has to be done first. We have to activate the core before we squat. We don't want to have a loose core because then everything tumbles in. So we always have to keep the body active. One of the best examples, the simplest way I can explain this, and for George and for everybody at home, if I were to be in front of George, I'm going to punch him as hard as I can in the stomach. So say if you're in a square stance, George, and you were to activate your core, you were to brace for this punch to the stomach, what would you do? Exactly. Now you saw what happened there. We'll go ahead and do it again. He braces. Now everything here tightens up. That's the transverse abdominis muscle. It's kind of like this little girdle that's tightening everything up. It's activating your diaphragm, your rectus abdominis, all of these muscles around here. Everything's doing its job to keep the spine in place. So, well, in this case, so you can brace for a punch, but also if you were to lift a heavy weight, you'll find almost any movement that you do, that's going to become what you do before you do your movement. Whether you're going to take off running, whether you're going to throw a punch, whether you're going to throw a kick, whether you're going to do a power clean or a squat or anything, you always have to have core activation. Let's just show one more example here, George. Let's go and go down into the plank position. And this is one of those ones that you can kind of almost test if your core is activating just by holding this. Now, George's core is activating. We know this because of the alignment. We have ear, shoulder, hip. Everything here is nice and tight, and George's, he's contracted throughout. One thing if you'll notice here is that his body's not moving out. Although George is breathing, he's definitely, oxygen is going in and out of his body. He's not losing the core activation. This is very essential. You don't want to start breathing, let your body collapse as you're breathing. You want to keep everything in place. And if you can, you try to breathe into the back of the lungs as you're there. Try not to just breathe real shallow. Try to breathe natural, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult because this is all contracting. This is restricting the movement of your ribs a little bit, but you still be able to breathe into the back. That's the whole idea. So breathe naturally, yet keep the muscles activated. It's a very important concept that not only for our program, but just for life in general. If you're ever going to pick anything up, if you're ever going to do any activity, this can help you. And that covers the basics of core activation. Okay, now let's talk about the burpee. The burpee is, in my opinion, it's one of those motions that probably best simulates the energetics of a fight. If you do it with an explosive nature and you really go after it, you can get a very intense workout in less than a minute if you just do as many as you can. It's one of those things that, because there's so much muscle being used and there's so much movement involved, that this really accelerates the metabolism and it works pretty much every muscle throughout the body. Let's go ahead and have you show a few burpees, George, just in full speed. Let's do 3 of them. So if you notice, we have almost all those components we talked about. We have, okay, you can go and relax. We have squatting. We have sort of almost like a lunge. We have a plank position. We have core activation. We have jumping. We have a push-up. We have flexion of the spine. We have so much movement going on here. And for some people, well, actually for almost everybody, this is a difficult exercise.
Absolutely. It's raise the heart rate.
Yeah. And it's also pretty similar to a sprawl motion too, right? Like if someone were to try to take you down, it's almost like you're sprawling.
You can say it's like a sprawl and also could be following by a takedown. The same push that you find during a takedown, it's the same push that you use when you come up.
Yeah, so there's a lot of functional transfer, if you want to use that word. It's actually that's actually a great way to describe it. There's functional transfer from this movement into what George does or what most athletes do. Now, for some people, the most difficult part might be the squat thrust. So let's just show the squat thrust component, George, where you just jump back and jump up, okay? Now, if you have a hard time doing that, because see, George he's a strong person and he has good coordination. For some people, that might be a little bit too much in the beginning and the jump at the top. So what I'm going to suggest as a modification, if you're having a tough time doing the squat thrust, because you see squat thrust and burpees throughout the program, is I suggest you do this and sprawling. So this is a great substitution for squat thrust, burpees, and sprawling motions throughout. What I'd like to see you do is this. You just basically come down and try to get your hands onto the ground. You're going to step back with one foot, back with the other, back with the foot, back here, and then stand. That's a fine substitution. You'll find when you get used to it, you can build up speed, and then eventually you can get into the full motion where you hop back and you hop up. And that covers the burpee and the squat thrust. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about addressing the dumbbells. And what I mean by that is how we pick the dumbbell up off the ground. My recommendation for almost anybody, I even do this myself when I train, is to set my dumbbells on something about anywhere between knee to waist height. I prefer a chair or a table, or if I'm at a gym, I prefer like the rack itself. And the reason being is we don't want to come up to our dumbbells and try to pick them up like this. Now, throughout the program, you might notice, because we're doing real workouts, you might notice that happens. You might notice people set their dumbbells down. They are bending the spine. So you're going to be like, that's a contradiction. But what happens when you have a strong core, you can get away with it. If I do this here right now, like I'm technically in bad posture, and look, I just did it the wrong way. But that's because I have a strong core. I'm able to do that. But if I'm deconditioned and I do this type of motion, I could hurt myself. And that's very important to realize that just because you can get away with it, you should try not to. You should always make it your objective to do everything the correct way. So as you get stronger and stronger, you can make a mistake, but to do it the correct way, this is what George is going to show now. This is how we want you to come down if you're going to pick your dumbbells off the ground. Notice how his back's in a strong, flat, neutral position, and that means his core is activated. Now if you go up and you set your dumbbells back down, George, same thing. Notice he widens out his stance a little bit, then he drops them down, strong position, and that's how you address the dumbbell. Okay, the dumbbell squat is very similar to the squat that we learned for just basic body weight squatting. It's the same mechanics. The only difference is that now we have resistance added. So George is going to come up, address the dumbbells. He's going to step back, and he's going to set his stance at shoulder width apart. The toes can point slightly outward, but for the most part, his legs are straight ahead. And with his dumbbells by his side, he's just going to squat down and then come back up. And notice how the dumbbells move a little bit out the way. Good posture. Try to get his thighs down the parallel each time. Good. Now, George, if you can, let's clean them up. And now this is what we call a front squat. So it's pretty much the same thing. Notice how he lowers down and drives up. The weights stay high, pushing the elbows forward. And notice how he gets down deep. It's the same thing. So there's two basic variations that we're looking at doing. And that's our basic squat with our dumbbells to the side. And then with our dumbbells up, the front squat variation. These both, basically what we're doing is the same type of squatting motion. Like I said, the same mechanics. We're sitting back into that chair. The knees aren't going too far forward. We're activating all the leg muscles, the core muscles, everything throughout. And this makes your legs very strong.
Keep everything straight.
And that's the dumbbell squat. Okay, the dumbbell lunge is essentially the same lunge that we learned before, except now we're just adding resistance. The most common way that we're going to add resistance is just by holding the weights down by our side. Starting off, George, feet together. And let's go and do a lunge. Let's do all four directions, okay? Let's go forward, okay? Then we'll go with our lateral lunge to the side. Excellent. Let's go backwards now. And we'll do our cross back lunge. Okay, so those are four directions. And you'll notice that each one's a little bit different, but yet it's pretty much similar. Let's go back out to the forward lunge again one more time, though. So notice when George comes down here, when he lunges, now George lowered his knee down because that's for what I'm showing you guys. You know, if he holds that there, it actually becomes excruciatingly painful. And so he's taking a little break down here, but normally his knee would not be on the ground. He's just going to be here for a momentary pause, and he comes back. The key thing here, though, is actually how he's putting the weight onto his foot. His weight's not going onto the ball of his foot and his toes, and his knee's not projecting forward. He just steps forward, and he lowers down into the heel.
90 degree.
Yeah, exactly. Get that thigh to parallel, then come right back up into standing, pushing off the ball of the foot, and there it is. He's back into his position. So forward and backwards, and you can go multi-directions. Now, do you like doing multi-direction lunges, George?
I like it because when I'm fighting, in every day of life, you know, you're going multi-direction. So it's important that your training reflect what you will perform.
And that's the dumbbell lunge. The dumbbell standing press is one of the best strength building exercises that we have for the upper body. What happens here is we want to maintain, first of all, let's go and bring the dumbbells up, George, to the rack position. This is what we call the rack position, okay? Meaning that we have them racked up top here. Now, very important here is that we don't want George extending at the spine. We actually want core activation. We're that key theme. We want to keep everything here in place. And then, George, let's just press them straight up with your palms facing. That's a basic standing press. Now let's do another repetition with a rotation. That's also an acceptable form of pressing. Yeah, rotating at the bottom. And now let's do a push press, which is an explosive form. Good. And let's do that one more time, George. So standing press, no, a basic standing press, just straight up, good. Then rotating, and then the push press, where if you notice, he looks down as he presses up. The reason why he does it, you can even do that in your regular presses too, if you just wanted to develop this habit. What George is doing when he does this, he's clearing out more space back here in between his scapula so he can actually get better extension on his arms when he does that. So when I look down, I say, but I don't want to stay looking down. As I lower it down, I'll look up. Other thing is, you notice George, he's not doing this. He's not sticking his chest out to try to get his chest involved in all these other muscles to use more weight. He's maintaining good core alignment, which actually makes him a better athlete. It keeps him safe, and it gives him real functional strength. It's not an artificial form of strength that we're doing here. He's actually keeping his body in the alignment that it should be in. So, and then he's using the weight that actually suits his body. So remember, don't try to use a bunch of weight here. Don't let your ego get involved into the lift. Try to use just what you can use with good form.
Quality over quantity.
Yes, that's one of the most important concepts. You're going to quality over quantity. And if you get used to doing that, you'll find that eventually the weight will increase. And so with this one, just let it go gradually. A lot of times we get our egos attached to the pressing motions. Like people ask, how much do you bench press? And would you say that that's really even relevant in a fight, how much you bench press?
Doesn't make any difference.
Okay, so One more thing here, just on the press before we wrap it up here, is that when you do the push press, remember that's an advanced variation. When we do this requires a little bit more explosion. We're using the legs, we're popping the hips. If any motion, if you find that it's a little bit too ballistic, that you don't feel comfortable doing it, it's totally fine to substitute just a standard press. And that's where we just come up and down, or even looking straight ahead. Very basic. So you don't have to do the push press unless you feel you're ready for that. And that's the basics of the dumbbell standing press. Okay, now let's talk about the dumbbell row. I consider the dumbbell row to be sort of like the yin to the yang or the yang to the yin to a standing press. It's sort of like the balancing out motion. And it's a very important motion because we don't really get any type of pulling motion with our body weight exercises. So we want to make sure that we include a pulling motion with the dumbbells. The important thing here is, if you notice, when George comes down, let's go and do a couple stationary rows there, George. Good. 1, let's do 3 here. 2, 1 more, and 3. And you can come back in the standing. Now, if you notice when George, when he does his row, he sits back with his hips this way, onto his heels with his chest over his spine. He does not round. He keeps the back in a nice, strong, neutral position there. Again, remember the concept, core activation. It stays throughout, okay? So the core has to activate. I sit back here, and then I'm in good position. Now, this is a very important motion, so we have to remember, we try to pull our elbows back, and we're pulling with our elbows. That activates our lats, our rhomboids, our traps, all of these muscles that make our backs very strong and allow us to do this motion. We have to use those. The biceps, the forearms, everything here, it is activating as well, but remember, we want to pull with the elbow. Now, George, let's show a rotational row. This is where he's actually going side to side, and let's go and get, some spinal rotation going on there. Good. Now, if you notice, it's the same motion. Now he's just alternating arms, but still the same strong back position. The core is activated, and he's moving the elbows around the spine. And George, now let's go ahead and go down into the prone position. Oh, no, okay, actually, let me grab one of these and just do a 1-arm, 1-leg row. Yeah, let's check that out. Now he's doing the same type of row, but now he's on, it's much more, this is an advanced variation. Now, if George wanted to modify this because, say, balance were an issue, let's say you're having a hard time doing that, George, just put your foot down. They're going to try to stay bent over, good, and row. And you could even brace your hand on your knee there too, George. Yeah, that gives him more stability. Okay, so that's an easier modification when you see a 1-arm, 1-legged row. And let's do 1 prone row, George. So put the dumbbells down here in front of you and out into this position. And we're just going to go side to side a few times. So now he's in that push-up type position. And notice he's pulling, he sets the weight down, he's going side to side.
My core is working as well.
Yeah, this is activating his core to the extreme. Now, what we want here, too, now, George, let's lower down to the knees. Let's say George fatigues and he wants to continue on rowing, but his core it's gotten tired. This is a great modification to make. If you find that that type of prone row becomes too difficult, you can always lower down to your knees. That makes it a little bit easier on the core, and you can still get that rowing motion in, which is a very important motion. And that's the basics of the dumbbell row. Now let's talk about the exercise upright rowing or high pulling, or I should say, because they're not exactly the same, but it's a similar movement pattern. Let's first look at the upright row. You'll notice this is a movement throughout. Now the upright row is basically George in just a natural stacked position, stacked meaning ear, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle. Nice natural posture. He's using the trapezius muscles, the deltoids, the biceps, everything here, and he's pulling upward. Notice how the elbow comes up higher than the wrist, and he's just activating all of that, pulling up. Now that's our basic movement pattern. Now George is going to do a little bit more advanced. George, you can actually just use 1. You don't have to even use 2 here. Now let's do a high pull. Now the difference with the high pull is this is leading into the Olympic lifts. He's using his legs. He's popping his hip, driving with his legs, and then using that to help pop it up. And it's more of a leg exercise, and the arms are just activating towards the top. They're both great variations. Now, if you notice that the high pull is a little bit complicated, you can always substitute back with our basic that you saw there, which is just the upright row, whether it's with 1 dumbbell or with 2 dumbbells. And then if you feel comfortable, we use our legs. And if you notice, hey, George, can we do this a couple more times? I just want to show one more thing here when you do it. And if you notice, when George does this motion, look at his spine. His spine is nice and strong. His core is activated throughout, and that allows him to connect his legs to his arms.
The actual work is more with the leg than the shoulder, actually.
Yes. That's kind of like with a punch or a kick, too, right? I mean, like almost everything that you do, it's more from the hips and the
Our legs is the strongest part of our body. Legs are much more stronger than the arms, so that's why we use the leg for everything that we do.
And that covers the basics of the dumbbell high pull or the upright row. Now we're going to talk about the dumbbell clean or the dumbbell power clean. Olympic lifting, in my opinion, is what we're all kind of building up to with, with athletic training and weightlifting. I think that's the main value of weight training for a fighter. Would you agree?
I agree, and that's one of the reasons why I implement Olympic lifting movement pattern in my training, because the Olympic lifters are the most explosive athlete in the world, and in my sport, I need explosiveness.
So George a lot of times trains with a barbell, but a dumbbell is a fine substitution. Never feel, like just because you don't have a big heavy weight, we can't get the same effect. Because when you think about what we're doing, whether we're using a barbell, a kettlebell, a dumbbell, whatever it is, we're essentially doing a jumping motion. This concept of triple extension of the ankle, knee, and hip joint like this, that's what people are doing with it. So George, let's go ahead and jump up. Yeah, let's show that a few more times. So that's what it looks like without, and really jump off the ground and really exaggerate it. And so if you notice, what an Olympic lift is, essentially we're projecting the weights upward, right, with this shrug, with this type of movement pattern, kind of like we're jumping up off the ground. But because we have heavy weights, we don't really jump. A lot of times we stay planted on the ground. Then as I land, I pop my elbows forward, and that gets me underneath the weight. So I'm actually putting myself underneath the weight, then I stand.
We transfer all our energy in the tools that we have, either if it's a barbell or a dumbbell. In Olympic lifting, they use a barbell, but we're going to transfer all the energy of the movement in our dumbbell.
Yes. So let's go and show it a few times with the dumbbell. Let's take a look at the basics here. So the first thing is this, there again, we get ourselves in a nice strong position. You notice George will fold over, but keeping the back in a strong position. Then he'll extend up, and he does the catch. So there's a couple parts of it. George, let's just go and stress just the, yeah, good. And if you notice, let's do it one more time. Excellent. And what he's doing there, you can go and set the dumbbells down, George. He's extending here, okay? And remember, as he's extending, it looks like he's just throwing the weights up, but really what's happening is the weights are projecting upward, and as he dips, he punches his elbow forward, and he maintains good position here, and he squats down, he lands on his heels, then he stands, then he lowers. And if you notice, he's not in a rush. He's not doing this and dropping them down. It's very deliberate and slow because it's the explosiveness that he's trying to capture. He's not just trying to throw the weights around and do a bunch of repetitions. He's focusing on good leg drive every time. And another key component to the power clean is coordination. It's very difficult to project a weight in one direction and then drop and switch directions, catch and stabilize. So this is sort of like the epitome of athleticism.
Yeah, and when you drop down underneath, it's like a free fall. You have to let your leg just like a free fall. You let everything go.
So this is one of those motions that you might find almost too complicated in the beginning. And remember, the best way to practice is with no weight. Get used to this motion of sort of jumping, landing, and punching your elbows forward. Then eventually try to shorten the jump where it's just this. But in the beginning, if you find this too difficult, let's take a look at a fine substitution here. So if it's not going to be the same muscle energetics, we're going to lose some explosiveness, we're not getting the same coordination factor, but we're training similar muscles. So if I'm not able to do a power clean yet and I'm practicing just my body weight, I can do this when a power clean and a press or whatever pops up, and a push press pops up into the routine. I'm just going to lower down to a squat, stand, curl. So that's a fine substitution for the clean. Now, if it calls for a clean and press, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to squat, curl, and press. So throughout the movements, you might see that. Throughout the workout, you might see the need for a clean. There's a substitution, okay? We squat and we curl. And if it's a clean and push press or a dumbbell power clean with a push press, we're going to come here and press. Keeping everything very basic, but still working similar muscles. And that covers the basis of the dumbbell clean. Okay, the dumbbell swing it's kind of like a mix. It's a very functional exercise. It's not as explosive or requires much coordination as an Olympic lift, yet you're integrating the legs with an upper body movement. Similar to the high pull, similar to the power clean, yet I think a little bit more simplistic, but it's a great motion. It develops overall athleticism, I think. George, you want to go and pick up a dumbbell and
Absolutely.
show us how you do it? So notice George grabs a 30-pound dumbbell, which seems kind of heavy, but it's actually not that bad because he's using his legs. Remember, George is very strong, so you might not be at a 30 yet. You might start with a 5-pound weight, a 10-pound weight, even just your body weight. Now, if you notice as George is doing this, he takes a little pause at the top, right? And as he lowers down, his core is activated the whole entire time, and he maintains alignment here. He's not collapsing. If you notice, one of the key things here is where you look. So if I stay looking straight ahead, as I lower down and I swing up, my spine stays neutral. If I happen to try to follow the weight, I might overextend at the back and hurt my spine here, and I might injure myself if I try following it down. So don't really look at the weight with this one. Just stay looking straight ahead. Nice natural stance. And if you find that, there again, you feel the weight's getting out of control, you feel you might hurt your shoulder, you just don't feel comfortable going all the way up, you can always play with the range of motion with this, meaning I can dip a little bit more shallow and I can swing not as high. So a substitution for this will be, as I'm here, just barely moving. And then as I feel more comfortable, I can start working my height up, driving my legs down more, to eventually getting into a full swing.
The power comes from his legs.
Yes.
Not from the shoulder. Don't try to lift the weight with your shoulder. It's all the glute, the core, and the legs.
And a key detail to that, if you just want to get that leg drive, is when you go down, try not to push off the balls of your feet. Try to push your heels down to the ground. That activates all of these muscles and it gives you much more power. And that's where the power comes from the hamstrings, from the glutes, from the back. And that covers the basics of the dumbbell swing. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about the dumbbell get-up. We don't have to use a dumbbell, but it's probably the best variation, especially if you're using this at home. Some people, old strong, used to use barbells, used to use all kinds of big, heavy objects. Even you could probably even use a human body. Now, the thing about the get-up, let's go ahead and show it a few times, George. Its entirety. If you notice throughout, George is keeping his eyes on the weight the whole time. That's very important. Don't discount that and just think he's just doing it for whatever reason. This is one of the most important details you can learn about this whole entire movement. Do not, at any time, take your eyes off this weight. Don't look at the screen. Don't watch us doing it. When you start doing your get-ups, the only thing is you and your weight. Because if you take your eyes off that weight, it's very likely, it could definitely happen, that this weight could come down and hit you. And you don't want to get hit in the head by a dumbbell, especially if you're using 15, 20, 30 pounds or more. It can cause some damage.
Absolutely.
Now, what would you say is the main functional value for you using that movement, George?
I would say when I fight, I use a technique called the hip eyes to stand back up from when I'm under one of my opponents.
So that's pretty much working the same muscles throughout.
Absolutely. It's pretty much the same pattern. The eyes, remember to keep the eyes on the dumbbell. The eyes that directed your movement. So when we're going up, keep looking up. Don't look down. And very important, don't look at us on the TV. You might hurt yourself.
Now let's go and try to break down what's happening with the get-up. We're using no weight here because we're going to have George go very slow. And this is actually a great way to start learning how to use this. No weight in your hand and just looking at the hand that's up. Now let's break down what's happening here throughout, okay? So George his shoulders are working, everything's working. And now his abdominals are working, his obliques are working, the shoulder over here is working. As he comes up, now this is very important. Let's go ahead and stop here now, George. As George comes up, notice how he goes in the opposite direction of the arm that's extended. He comes up and his left arm, so if he's holding the weight with his right hand, or if he's looking at his right hand, his left arm is the base support here as he comes up. So this takes some of the stress off the body and it gives it throughout the structure. Let's stay here for a second, George. Let's come back down. I want to stress leg position. So you notice how when George came up here, the arm that's the post arm, being his left arm, is the same leg that's been. This is the same position. We do this on purpose when we do our training because this is what we call the staggered butterfly guard or staggered hooks guard. He's doing this as a very functional transfer into the body. Now, at this point, George has to notice how this knee's up in the air, okay? His foot's down. When he decides to make his move and come up in the stand, he's going to hip heist up, meaning he's going to turn his hips up. Yeah, and he gets his knee on the ground. And now as he comes up in the stand, he just drives upward. As he lowers back down, he sets his knee onto the ground and he reverses the whole motion. Notice how as he steps, yeah, let's come back here real quick, George. Let's come up. Yeah, notice how when he comes down, he lets his foot flip around and his left arm post onto the ground. Then he lowers down elbow onto the elbow. Then he goes down to the shoulder. Then he lets his legs straighten all the way back out. So as you can see, there's a lot of movement going on, and you can't discredit any one move. You have to make sure that each one's done correctly. So it's very important. This is the most difficult part for people, is this, as I'm here, is getting this knee back, and as a base of support, I want to get it underneath my hip. It's very important as I'm doing this that I don't keep my knee too narrow, because then I'll collapse as I try to come up. So if you find that you can just get to here and that's about all you feel comfortable with, that's a half get up, and that is a fine substitution. So if necessary, you can come up just to the halfway point. So let's do a half get up, George. You notice the description here is a little bit longer because we want to be sure that you're doing this correctly. This is a very important motion. So as he comes up, start to drive up and sit all the way up into the post position. There we go. Now that's a half get up. Let's slide back down, George. So you go down elbow, shoulder, line straight, and then back up again, a half get up. Now, if you notice if he's going to do the full get up, he's just basically going to pull his left leg back underneath of him. There you go. So that gives him a base support. He's going to turn, straighten up the body, come fully into standing, and then he reverses the motion. That's a full get up. He's going to come back down to the knee, fold the left leg in, post the left arm, then lower down, elbow, shoulder, flat on the ground. And that covers the dumbbell get up.